idea, like I want to learn, you know, kung fu, and like all of a sudden, like you can download, you know, get that file and download it to your brain, or you want to learn about anything in history, and it's sort of like the robotic cloud for, you know, for robots, a robot Earth. I mean, what if there was like a human cloud that our brains could connect to, and we could have access to information? To me, that would be that is really cool, and I mean, I think that's way down there. I think we've got to get the robots to be able to be integrated with our biology. But I think it's definitely there. I mean, they already have, there's something called Medusoid. Have you guys heard about this? All right, so this is pretty cool. So there was a silicon, I'm gonna look at my notes right here, a silicon robotic jellyfish. And they grew cardiac cells on the silicon. And so when they, and it was suspended in water, so when they shot it with electronic pulses, it actually contracted. So it actually created like a heartbeat in this thing. So one of the theories they found, and this is like on a very small level, but is that if we did have robots with cells, like meaning if we had like an arm that was covered with like the silicone and real human cells, it would have to be kept wet. And you know, because right now we have the blood flow going through us, which keeps everything moist.
It has to be supplied with moisture.
Yeah.
Waste would have to be taken away from it.
So maybe
just like real skin.
Yeah, just like real skin. So if we had a computer that could, you know, be moist, that could it would have to be something that was biological, something that was grown from our cells. That could interact with it, to be able to be implanted into our brains, to be able to interface with the computers on a, you know, that level.
The whole conversation takes an abrupt right turn if you start talking about biomachines.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think those are really cool.
But you know, just that's a whole new dimension.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can go
ethical issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were lots of folks with hands. I'm going to go with the fellow in the back because he has not had a question yet.
Thanks. So we were talking about generally the whole concept is when machines are capable of doing things that people are, what will we do? But I think that there's things that, as of right now in our current trajectory, there are things that robots will not be able to do. For instance, right now we don't have any programs that can make art. We can have programs that can simulate art or can reproduce art, but to actually create art, you know, we don't really have anything that's really creating. Well, okay. So then we get to the philosophical question of what is art, and these are things that I think that it opens the dialogue of let's think about things that they can't do that we can do right now. You know, the machine doesn't completely replace the human in all aspects. It'll replace a certain human in a certain position or a certain fact. So I happen to be.
Yeah, it won't. Humans are not. You know, part of the problem is, and we do this particularly, I think, in this country more than the rest of the world, is that because we define ourselves so much by our job and by whatever work we do, we talk about robots replacing humans. What they're doing is they are replacing, and they are taking up an occupation or taking up a labor that humans normally do.
Right.
What would happen was, one, more humans would shift occupations to stuff that machinery normally does not do.
Right, and I wouldn't say can't,
it does not do.
Can't. I don't mean.
No, I get that. But the other thing is that, and I've said this before, is that we'll also start moving into things where humans will start to think about things that right now they think nobody can do.
Now, you just reminded me of a story by Brand Ganglin called The Hidden Institute, where in that world, 3D printers made high technology cheap. In fact, and they also had robot servants in that world. But when the 3D printer lets you get pretty much anything you want really cheaply, that no longer became desirable among the rich and powerful. So what the rich and powerful wanted were handcrafts. They wanted artisans to build them furniture, about, you know, wood, works of art. So it's interesting that kind of advancement in technology ends up bringing back older skills and older art forms.
Well, you
and I guarantee, I'm sorry, just throwing in, that kind of thing will make energy would make energy an even more important resource than it is today. And We are still not quite yet at the point where solar technology is advanced enough to be marketable, and that may change in 20 to 30 years, but I've heard it say it may change in 20 to 30 years for 20 to 30 years. But, you know, if you have a situation where you don't have to worry about the things that 3D machines can print, you will still have to worry about powering those machines, and that could end up, we can end up becoming even more revolving around energy than we did before.
Well, yeah, I was kind of talking about with Doc. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine at the bar right before this, and she said, yeah, I mean, you look at it now, when we go to furniture stores and we see these mass-produced furniture, and we see artwork that's digital prints, we will, I know my husband and I always go and we like to get the original art if we can. Like, there was one of those artists that we absolutely loved. She did a bunch of the covers for Buffy and Angel, and we went to a panel she did at Comic-Con, and she's like, oh yeah, I do everything on the computer. And we thought that she had actually hand painted this, and we were so bummed because we were like, you know, if we could afford it, we would love to have the original. And I think that it does make, I mean, we're seeing it now, like when you go and you see people who make furniture by hand. I mean, I know when I was walking through the dealer's room and I saw people that were crafting these purses and this jewelry by hand, to me, it's just, there's something intimate about it. It's like a soulfulness. And I think that Doc's right. I think that we're seeing it now, but it's going to be more in the future. When you have computer-made artwork, it's not going to be as valued as something that's made by human hands.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is always going to be a luxury, though. I wanted to say that. Like,
Yeah.
it's a luxury item. Nobody actually needs the handmade thing, which is you know, it's an issue on a lot of levels, though, too, now. So.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question was, this was about what we were talking about earlier about how the population would respond. I'm wondering if it would be necessary to have a transitional period where people would essentially be paid some sort of basic income, or to have something like that phased in for...
That was actually another one of the possibilities that I was thinking of earlier, was that the availability of cheap robot labor would actually make a more viable, if you'll pardon the expression, socialist-based state, where the state in regulating business and industry is able to make a profit and pay it back to the citizens as some kind of a dividend. Mm-hmm. Basically, you're part of this country. The country made a lot of money. You get some of it. You're a stockholder.
Mm-hmm.
Alaska has that, and I know actually the British government right now is trying something. They call it universal credit, which is, and this is actually I think how we could actually see this happening, is that you can basically have governments that have created, you know, various stovepipe welfare systems and have said, okay, these all, some of them are contradictory each other. They're creating ridiculous incentives where a person making 29, like a person making $29,000 a year essentially has a higher marginal tax rate than someone making $129,000 a year, because they have welfare benefits that are going to stop if they go to $30,000, for example.
Plateau.
That's right. Yeah. So what they're looking at doing is basically taking these and trying to dovetail them all into each other and create something like, say, a minimum income level or universal credit level that says, okay, we're going to have, and actually it was Milton Friedman who started it in the 1970s, called it a negative income tax. He called it a negative income tax. It said basically so that you put it on what he was attempting a sliding scale, so that you give people incentives to keep working if they can, but at the same time get rid of what in his time was even a more myriad and complex welfare system to create something far more simpler.
People talk about capitalistic governments, and it's like, if the government's capitalistic, then all the citizens should get dividends and not pay taxes.
And unfortunately, we've hit 6:50. So we have run out of time. My apologies to all of you who did have questions. Thank you all so very much for coming. Thank you for listening to me warble and for the experts actually talk.
Oh no, I got more into this panel. I got